I think we can get started with some introductions before we get into any of the shelter update side of things. So if you are watching live, good morning, happy Saturday, and happy Halloween. I am Paige, and I work for the shelter. I'm going to be moderating this live virtual update today. And I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your Saturday and joining us. We really appreciate it. And thank you just in general for supporting us and tuning in. We've missed a lot of you, so we're happy to be able to give an update. Also, we've had some folks submit questions so that we could prepare and make sure to give you information. So if you submitted a question, special thanks to you. You'll also be able to submit questions today in our chat. So I'll just be monitoring the chat, and if there's something that we haven't addressed by the end of the meeting, I'll try to make sure we cover it. And if we don't, anyone can email info@pasidaho.org with questions, and we'll just follow up with you personally afterwards. So again, that's info@pasidaho.org. And if you're up for it, we love to give tours and have you in, show you around the shelter and thrift store. So you can contact us through that info@ email for that too. We'd love to have you. So it's looking like we've got a couple people joining us. So welcome and thank you so much for tuning in. We're glad you're here. I think I'll just jump into some introductions. We've got on this call Devin. She's our operations manager. She's on my screen. She's up in the left corner in the plaid shirt. Maybe give a wave, Devin. Thank you. And then we've got Mandy down in the middle here, Mandy Evans. She's our executive director. Maybe give a wave. And then we've also got folks tuning in from all around. Our board members are here, some of our volunteers and our staff and supporters. So hope you guys have a cup of coffee or hot cocoa or tea, and we can just be together this way today in hopes that one day we can do this in person again. I think that's everything I have to cover. As moderator, I'm just going to do my best to keep us on track, and we're going to go right up until noon, and then we'll call it a day. But if we haven't addressed a question by then, just use that info@ email. So my job is just going to be to keep us on track and try to get everyone's questions answered. So I'll be going back and forth from the chat and just addressing our two panelists as we go. So I think we're gonna jump in because we've got people chimed in and ready to go. So I've got a couple questions that were submitted in advance, and we're gonna address those first. So thanks again to those folks who submitted them. And this first one is actually just about how things are going. It's a pretty open-ended question. It just says, can you tell us how things are going at the shelter and any progress that you're making on your mission? So pretty open-ended, and I think I'll just address that to both of you.
I can jump in. So hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. It has, as Paige mentioned, been a little weird to not really be able to see and embrace our community the way that we've always enjoyed in the past. Darn COVID. So it has been an interesting and extremely challenging year. Just a lot of twists and turns, and we've had to really pivot around COVID. I just remember in the beginning really being super proud of a lot of our community programs that allowed us to be able to support our community in different ways when shelters were really having to close. So that was a really nice way to start the COVID process. But as we have continued to go on, the challenges have continued. So our mission at the organization is to create and support meaningful connections by enhancing the lives of dogs, cats, and the people in our community who love them. And how we're doing that right now is through our programs like PFL, Pets for Life. Pets for Life is a program where we have a team member who goes into underserved communities and literally knocks door to door, asking people if they need assistance with their pets. And we'll provide any of the assistance that we provide is for free. So food, medical care, leashes, collars, the list goes on. So we've been doing that this year, and then also the helpline. So we're on track to serve more people through our helpline than we have before, about 2,400 families. Our helpline also provides these services where people that need assistance feeding their pets, if they need training help, if they need advice, if it's just, we're here for them. We want to make sure that the people in our community have the care they need for their animals so that we can keep families together. One exciting thing that happened this year is that we were recognized by Best Friends Animal Sanctuary. We're a governing board member of the Idaho Shelter Coalition. And the Shelter Coalition came together a few years ago to try to reduce the amount of euthanasia happening in shelters in the state of Idaho. And this year we were successful. Well, last year we were successful in reducing euthanasia in the state of Idaho by 50%. And our goal is by 2025 to no longer euthanize pets for space in the state of Idaho. So our resources and time have gone into supporting area shelters in their efforts to join along on this journey with us. And then I think Devin might have some medical success stories to share.
Oh, when don't we have medical success stories to share? It's one of the pluses of what I get to do. We've had quite a few, cases come in where urgent, medical assistance was needed, and be it, animals coming into the shelter that were picked up as strays, or calls that have come through the helpline needing medical assistance. Just recently, we had a dog that had a traumatic accident outside of the shelter and was brought in as a stray, and basically his leg was not able to be saved, and we were, able to amputate, and he's basically, I'm pretty sure he's going to be adopted today. His name is Loki, and he is just a very happy dog. So those are things, that we're able to do like in-house for our animals. And another one that's pretty relevant, especially to what we're going and we're seeing right now with kittens. It's the latter part of our season, and oftentimes with the second litter of kittens that come into the shelter, we see a lot of illness, and we have a kitten that tested positive for panleukopenia, and we were able to treat, and oftentimes the mortality rate with that disease is anywhere from 20 to 90% depending on when it's caught. So we've got a lot of successes that happen in our shelter thanks to our veterinary staff and our veterinarian that we had the opportunity to bring on full-time this year. But yeah, just a couple things.
Thank you. And then we also have our home-to-home program, which allows community members who would normally need to bring their pets to the shelter to surrender the opportunity to find a new home. So they would avoid having to surrender to the shelter. And that has really been super helpful through this challenging time. I think last month we might have had 23 or 24 successful home-to-home adoptions. People love that program. We get emails from owners with just overwhelming gratitude that they were able to find a home for their pet without having to go through the painful and stressful process of surrendering to the shelter, or for their pet to not have to spend any time in the shelter. So I think that's kind of what we've been doing this year, Paige.
Thank you. That was a lot of information. So thank you. I have another question here, and this one's about our thrift store, actually. As you know, or folks tuning in, our thrift stores are a really big part of what we do at PAS. So this one says, I've heard that there's changes at the thrift store. Can you tell me more about it?
I guess that would be, I'll do that one. So we have a new manager in the thrift store. His name is Steve Crothers, and Steve joins us from a long history of working at Goodwill. So when he came in, he really wanted to provide some just systematic improvements that would help donations that come in get to the sales floor faster. So we've implemented, it's called the Kaizen method, which is when people make donations, they'll donate into these rolling carts that go right into the sorting area. And then there's this free flowing process that allows these donations to get through the system with less people touching them, which means that your donations go to the sales floor faster. And we've been really grateful to our community for the support we've received through shopping and donating. It's been really amazing. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mandy. We actually have a live question in our chat that I want us just pause and circle back to, because on our last question, you talked about PFL, Pets for Life, and that it goes door to door. And this question says, can you please explain more about the Pets for Life? Can anyone access said program, or is it only for parts of the community? And I'm going to direct that one to Devin, because I know you can talk about what that program's doing.
Yeah, so Pets for Life is really quite targeted. We have to be able to respond to the requests for assistance coming in, and of course be able to systematically approach the communities that we're in, knocking door to door. So we initially started this program out in Pend Oreille, and we branched out to Clark Fork. Actually, we went to Pend Oreille, Kootenai, and then to Clark Fork. And right now we've just started servicing Sagal. So we know that there's areas, within our community and parts of our other service communities that aren't a part of the Pets for Life program. And unfortunately, until we are able to reach those towns and open them up as part of our service area, the Pets for Life program is really limited to our specific approach, which are just those set areas right now.
But that's where the helpline comes in. So people who are not in those areas can reach out to the helpline, and we can provide similar assistance that we would through Pets for Life through the helpline. And then also, just to piggyback on what Devin said, that as far as systematic and resources, once we've entered into a community like Pend Oreille and we leave and move to another one, we still provide those services to the previous community we were in. So it's this cumulative effort that will continue. So we have, I guess it would be clients that we're working with to help them care for their animals.
Thank you. I hope that answers the question. And to the person who asked the question, if it doesn't, just send me another message and I can follow up. But let's move on to our next one. This was also submitted ahead of time. This just said, how are the shelter financials? I'm guessing that you might have had to pull from your reserves. I think, Mandy, you're probably the best to talk about that one.
So right now we have about $150,000 shortfall from our budgeted projections. And our program expenses actually have not been reduced from what we budgeted, but the way the expenses are coming about is different. So, for example, we've spent more money on medical and vet supplies than we had forecasted, primarily because we are out doing assistance within the community, but also there's been an increase in the supply costs due to our close connection with human medicine. And so that's been a bit of a challenge. And then really so much of the work that we do is community-based and trying to support our community members in keeping their pets. And through the higher cost of vet care, we know that there are people that can't afford it, and we do our best to meet those needs. And then to make up for that shortfall, we've been very lucky this year that a lot of the large animal welfare funding organizations have provided grants that are specifically COVID relief grants. So we've actually been able to really stay afloat due to community support and also this the COVID relief grants that we've been provided. And because providing community support is a priority in animal welfare throughout the nation, these grants are specific to supporting families and keeping their pets, which could be again, medical care, training, temporary boarding for people who are faced with housing instability, food, etc. So we have not had to pull from our reserves.
Thank you, Mandy. So we got another question that this one came in ahead of the event as well. And it's a really big and important question. I know it is to both of you. And it just says, what has been the effect of the pandemic on staff and volunteers?
I don't know, Devin, do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to that. So I know, like, professionally, you know, some of the challenges have been great. We, you know, when COVID kind of started, if you will, back in February, we were asked, you know, by the Surgeon General to stop elective surgeries. And really what that meant is, you know, anything that came through that was suffering and needed, you know, urgent medical needs and surgeries, those were the surgeries kind of taking priority, and elective surgeries, so general spay neuter, those were things that were kind of put on the back burner. So there's been this huge adjustment, you know, in our shelter and really shelters across the country where we've been hardwired for so long to spay neuter everything, you know, that comes through the door. Even some of these, you know, elective surgeries that aren't spay neuter, like a hernia or a mass removal or, you know, whatever the case may be. If it wasn't of an urgent or emergency need, those things were put on pause. We are in direct competition, you know, with human medicine for our supplies, and we've really had a challenging year to maintain a steady supply chain. And, you know, shortages have come from gowns to gloves to vaccines to syringes. We're seeing now where we have, you know, gloves that are out there for us. You know, these companies have kind of caught back up, and it seems to be one company that's able to meet the needs of everybody, but instead of paying $4 for a box of gloves, we're now paying $20 for a box of gloves. So that's something that we have to consider in our, you know, basically our budget. We've been blessed to have, you know, the guidance of like Best Friends Animal Sanctuary. We've had the HSUS, the ASPCA, Cornell University, really all of these companies that we look to and consult with on best practices, helping kind of guide the way. So we haven't been completely alone in this by any means, and have had a lot of direction and advice from these groups on how to proceed and navigate these waters. We've struggled initially when we closed the shelter. We had our stay-at-home orders. We had to furlough the majority of our staff. 95% probably of our staff were laid off temporarily. And unfortunately, due to you know, issues with unemployment pay, a lot of them had to go and find other jobs because unemployment just wasn't something that could be relied on for that time that they weren't with us. And we lost people. It's been a challenging year, I think, emotionally on everybody as well. And, you know, through this process, just recognizing that people are dealing with things in different ways. And as much as we can try to be there and support them, and through this time, that, you know, maybe the need to move back home with family. And, you know, that means, again, that we're losing staff to some of these changes that they're needing to take. And that's because that's what they need to do, and that's what's best for them. And we support them in that decision. But it's been very hard. It's been very hard. Personally, for me, you know, like aside even professionally, thinking that I'm managing, you know, my stress well. You think you're doing well until you are confronted with like stressful times. And then I think you realize that you probably are like internalizing quite a bit of feelings, and maybe not looking, you know, at what is just below the surface. And, you know, through these hard times, just recognizing that you're human and that you also need to take care of yourself, and of course each other. And trying to balance those two things has also been a challenge, but one of growth. You know, I really feel that I've learned a lot in all of this as well, and I'm thankful for those opportunities as well.
Yeah, Paige, I know that we're almost halfway through our time. So I think that Devin did a great job answering that question. I'm wondering if we should move on to the next one.
Yeah, I've got a really quick one I want to share from the chat. And we've got somebody asking if PAS offers dog classes, like training classes specifically. They've referenced agility. And I was just wondering if one of you could talk about that.
We don't right now. It's something that we've always wanted to do. It's just something that hasn't, you know, come about yet, but hopefully that will circle back in the future.
If you're a dog trainer and you're looking for a job, come see me.
I've also got another one that just came in, and I'm going to just send it to Devin because I know she'll know the answer to this one. It says, does the shelter only order supplies for PAS, or do you order supplies for other places like Second Chance or Post Falls?
Yes, we do for both. Yeah. So vaccines, it's not across the board, obviously. If we are being challenged ourselves in getting gowns and gloves, like those aren't things that we're going to readily be able to get for other shelters. And I don't mean it like it sounds, nor would we offer, you know, I think we're all kind of like competing for the same products out there. We're also being put on like allocations. So there may be, for an example, Rescue is a disinfectant that we use to help, you know, clean and keep a very sanitary area for our shelter. we have one 5-gallon drum allocated to us every month, and we go through about 3, and that has been a challenge. So depending on what the needs are, generally in the past we have helped with vaccines and rescue. That's the extent of what our supplies have gone to as far as other shelters go. And right now they're understanding that if we can't get it, then it's just not something we're able to offer them.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, I'm gonna move us along. This was a question that was submitted ahead of time, and it was about volunteers. The person wants to know how many volunteers you are down, and how does this pandemic affect our thrift store customers?
I'll answer to like the volunteer piece. We're down about 50% of our volunteers. We have about 78 active volunteers at the moment, but really what that means is only 13 are currently active. We have people who are, over the age of 45, and the majority probably of our volunteer base are over the age of 45 or children. We've got about 13 active volunteers, but it's been really hard. And I think a lot of our volunteers have even opted to pause in their activity with the shelter due to the health risks and not really wanting to be exposed.
And I'll answer for the thrift store. The thrift store customers, we are open 7 days a week, and the staff that are all working within the storage shelter have masks on, and we have not mandated that the guests in the store have to wear a mask. So it's basically for our customers business as usual.
Can one of you tell folks who are listening how they can volunteer if that's something they're comfortable doing?
Yes. If you go to our website, pasidaho.org, and go to the volunteer tab, there is an online application that you fill out, and it'll be directly sent to our volunteer coordinator.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, next question. This one, we got a couple people asking this, so I just summarized this one just in general. I'm concerned that animals aren't being altered, so spay and neutered, because you haven't been spaying and neutering every single animal. What can you say about this?
If I can speak to that. So again, with the onset of COVID, we were instructed to stop all elective procedures to help preserve medical supplies for like critical surgical needs coming into our shelter, and again for human medicine. Not only like our supplies limited, but there's also like a human risk involved with surgery, and we work really closely with each other in surgery when we're anesthetizing or prepping an animal for surgery. So we're not able to socially distance from one another. We also, basically recognized the simile between like fosters and prospective owners. And once we started surgeries back up, basically we decided to adopt animals out into homes with the promise of like spaying and neutering once we were to start these surgeries back up. Again, like that was a really hard thing for us to do because we have been hardwired for a very long time to spay and neuter everything that comes in and leaves our facility. But the reality was people wanted these animals, and we didn't see the difference between somebody wanting to foster an animal versus adopt it. And if we were able to say, like, once we're starting these surgeries back up, we want you to come back. It was a test basically for us, and trust and faith in our community. And And what the outcome was 100% compliance from our community. So basically, once we reached out and got back in touch with them, we realized that the majority of people don't want an unaltered animal in their house if given a choice. So again, the importance of like us spaying and neutering in-house of all our animals, continuing to provide spay neuter vouchers to the community, free spay neuter through our Pets for Life program. These are all things that are needed and wanted within our community. And we did not have one pet not come back to be altered when we started these services back up. Another thing, I guess if I can jump in there, one more thing, community cats, like trap neuter return program. It has been painful for me because I especially have, like when I hired on to where we were at in 2019, started to see a decrease in the amount of cats that were coming through our door. And we all attribute that to the success that we had in our trap neuter return program. Community cats, trap neuter return is something that is a program that will be started up eventually. But again, because of the challenges that we're having with supplies and staffing, it is something that will be brought back when we're really in a very good position to be able to offer this back up to the community. And there's a recent study that came out from the University of Florida and I think UC Davis that basically ran data to help like shelter professionals cope with not being able to like perform this activity and the setback of that basically we're all going to encounter as a result of not being able to perform community cat surgeries for this year is minor. We recognize that we've got some making up to do, but it's not going to be devastating to the community cat population in that it's going to flourish and we're going to have to basically start all over again.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, so we've got a couple questions in our chat, and I want the folks to know who are asking them that some of them I'm going to get to, so I'm not ignoring you, but some of them piggyback on the next question. So we've had some limitations at PAS, including how many cats and kittens that we're able to take in. So the question we got, I just summarized it, which is it true that PAS doesn't take in strays? And before we ask Devin and Mandy, I just want to share questions in the chat are really around, is this applying to dogs or is it just cats? And if you could just generally talk about how we're handling intake of animals, I think that's a pretty important question to the people who are tuned in.
Go for it.
Devin, can I jump in really quick and then you can get into the nitty gritty? So our shelter with dogs, yes, we absolutely take in stray dogs. And there are times when the shelter has to limit our hours or close. And even during that time, we put up a phone number that you can call for a municipality to come out and open the shelter and allow a stray dog to enter into the facility. The only reason that we would close our facility is due to staffing shortages. And when we are looking at an uptick of COVID cases in our community right now, we actually have 2 people in our organization that are out awaiting test results for COVID. If this impacts the shelter operations, we may have to close again due to not having an appropriate number of staff to manage the intake process. But as I said, like the municipalities would still be able to bring in stray dogs. All right, Devin.
Oh, I am off mute. Okay. So yeah, we're definitely still taking in animals, and we've had to essentially prioritize, if you will, like what animals we're able to take in. So it's horrible timing. It's never a good time, I don't think, for like a global pandemic and to have like all of these effects as a result of it. But we've definitely had to pause in basically being the yes guy and taking in pretty much the majority of animals that come through our door, as we have in years past. And I can say that with confidence. And I can say that this year is not normal. And this year is not going to be our new norm. And it does not make us feel good about having to turn kittens away and ask people to put them back where they found them. But because we are in the situation that we are in, and we also recognize that they have a better probable success rate of survival with their colony and with their moms than they do currently with us, given our situation, then that's basically what we are doing. And that's because we are being counseled by all of these groups, again, these organizations that are the leaders in animal sheltering, animal welfare. This isn't our original thought. This isn't something that, again, that we're doing even confidently. It is hard, and we've all struggled with this line of conversation, but we're definitely taking animals in. I mean, and there's this idea too, like that we're not taking in strays at all. And you know, just as an example, in 2019, we had 840 stray cats and 336 dogs. And I have in front of me 2018, 2017, and all of those numbers are pretty much the same. And what I can say is each year, those numbers continue to climb. We did not make the decision to all of a sudden stop taking in animals. There is a reason for it, and there's a good reason for it. And so cats, you know, if you're sick, injured, you have extenuating circumstances because you're moving, you have aggression of your animal. If you have a pet that you've adopted from us in the past and you're returning it, these are all animals that are an automatic in, if you will. If you have, and I'm just going to use this as an example because it's probably the most common, a cat that comes in, or a litter of kittens that are coming in, and they're healthy, they're cared for, like they are fat, they're fed. Those are cats that are being cared for. And those are basically the cats that we're just asking for help with right now to take back to where they were found. One thing that we've struggled with this year is also fosters. Like, we have not had the same participation, if you will, from our community. And the ones that we do have, we're really, really grateful for. But kitten season in Idaho is literally 5 to 6 months. And when you have 840 cats coming in within that small window of time, that's a lot of pressure on our staff. It's a lot of pressure also on our fosters and what we're asking them to do. And when you have a small line of fosters to go through each time, then we're also kind of limited we're limited in what we're able to do for these animals. So I don't know if I answered that question in a straight line, and I apologize if I kind of bounced all over. And if there's something else that I can speak to that was part of, please let me know.
I'm going to jump in really quick that I know that sometimes people look at an animal shelter as this really easy, like in and out, like, oh, animals come in and then they go out. It's actually really complex. There's actually a track in veterinary medicine specifically for shelter medicine. And we as an organization really follow the advice and guidance of our shelter veterinary professionals, and we follow the guidelines of best practices, which is, vaccinating upon intake and gowning up each time we touch and handle litters of kittens. And all of those things require a pretty significant amount of supplies.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be like so frank, but the sum of what it means to bring in a massive amount of cats, and I keep referring to cats because really that is the predominant animal that we serve in this shelter. We by far help way more cats than we do dogs in this shelter. And when you're dealing, again, 840 kittens in 1 year, compared to, you know, puppies, we get litters of puppies, but they're few and far between. If we aren't taking these steps to handle them in a certain way and really mitigating the exposure, because not all of them are healthy kittens, and I will say like a lot of them are not, because the majority of these cats coming in are of colonies, and it's our job to kind of, you know, assist them through that. Some of them are, some of them aren't. I'm not going to say the majority, but if we didn't take those steps to safeguard the animals in our care and the animals coming in, the result is death. And there is no other way to put that. The mortality rate of some of these illnesses that are common amongst community cats is high. And that in itself, if we had an outbreak in our shelter, really translates to a whole nother, you know, line of action that again requires a whole lot of resources, time, staffing, etc. So
Thank you, Devin. There's a question that I want to we're getting lots of comments, so I'm trying to sort through them and ask for clarification on some of them. So if we don't get to your question, please just know that we can talk offline about it, or we can email through info@. But this one was a piggyback to when we talked about the municipal contracts for dogs. And the person is wondering why there isn't a way for sheriff's department to access cat cages in addition to dogs. So this is when we get stray dogs, the sheriff's department can put them in our safe enclosure. So this can happen 24/7, but we don't have that same resource available to cats, and the community would just like to know why.
Okay. So our shelter contracts with the city of Pend Oreille, the city of Sandpoint, and Bonner County for stray dog intake. And it isn't, the sheriff's department and police agencies aren't typically picking up cats, stray cats. So because we're contracted for specifically dogs, then that's the access that we have provided to them.
Can I also chime in on that? Is it is illegal for the community to have free roaming dogs walking around town. So therefore you see a dog walking down the street, you know it's a stray. We don't have the same parameters in place for cats. Cats are free roaming animals. So to task a officer with picking up every cat that he sees walking down or she sees walking down the street, it just isn't feasible. It's something that they can't do. And there's not a lot of ways outside of like putting a collar on your cat to identify an owned cat versus a community free roaming cat.
Thanks, Devin. I'm gonna move us along, or I'm gonna encourage us to move a little bit quicker, just because we have 16 minutes left, and I think we have a lot to cover. So this is a question that was submitted ahead of time. We've covered a little bit already, but maybe you can just summarize. It says, I've seen that the shelter is struggling. What can I be doing to help?
Well, we definitely need foster families right now, and there is a link on our website where you can apply to be a foster. We also, on our Facebook page, put out a wish list Wednesday, every Wednesday. And that tells the community the things that we're needing in order to meet the needs of the community. And then donating and supporting the thrift store, shopping in the thrift store is also a huge help.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I think this might be our most popular question. And got a couple folks in the chat, and this was also submitted ahead of time. And it says, what exactly is the policy for kittens?
Okay. Well, we continue to take in like sick, injured, adoption returns, owner surrendered kittens, or basically where a health concern is a factor for the person owning the cat or kitten. Like under our modified like intake policy, we're again asking people who find kittens, especially those are still nursing, they're healthy, they're cared for, to be taken back to where they were found. We're asking that healthy looking adult cats also be returned to where they were found. They're most likely owned. There's a lot of information that we can provide to the community that supports this line of discussion, but just to summarize that is again, like a healthy looking adult cat is probably someone's cat that's just out cruising that got picked up and brought in. And the return to owner rate for adult cats, entering into the shelter system, I think is like less than 2% or something like that. So the chances of it finding its way home through its own, means versus us locating an owner are greater. I just, again, want to like reiterate that this year is not typical and this will not be our new normal. The challenges that we're facing are just as a result of a global pandemic and the effects that it's had on us and our team members and our community and our ability to bring animals in safely has been compromised. Supply shortages are like ongoing. It's not over, and it hasn't again been specific to like one item, but we need these items, especially the ones like gowns, gloves, vaccines, ketamine that we use for inducing anesthesia. These are all things that we've experienced like back orders on or supply shortages on. Like we can't bring these kittens in if we don't have these things available to us. We can't predict, when these supply shortages will end, but we basically plan to increase our services as much as possible as they become available. So sick, injured, basically we have a set criteria that I mentioned, and we're really trying to stick to that as much as we can. And again, as like supplies become available to us, we have more team member support. So that has been a little bit of a flip-flop. When we first started this, I would say supplies was our number one concern where we had staff, and that has kind of switched. Supplies are coming back. We have had a little bit of time to recover from that, but now we have staffing issues. So we're just constantly continuing to work through the situation that we're in, and just put ourselves in a better position, to be able to assist as we have in years past and as we will continue to do in years ahead. This is an isolated event and this is not a new normal, but that is where we're at for kittens right now.
I just wanted to add that we participate on 2 weekly calls that about, I think, 150 other shelters are on those calls each week. And these are all topics that are being discussed and challenges that are being faced throughout the nation. the veterinary clinics are able to kind of schedule things based on what they have in their supplies. That in sheltering, it's harder because we have a lot of animals that need to come in and need care. So these problems or challenges that we're having, we are not alone. There are shelters throughout the country who are having to have stray cats and kittens be returned to the field because of the struggles with their medical supplies as well. And actually, just a shout out to Bonner General Health, who has really been helping us try to identify other sources. They've been really great. They've provided us with a pattern to ask community members to be able to make gowns for us so that we can take that item off of the list of one of our greatest needs. The other thing I just want to mention is that we, our standards of practice and care at our facility are provided to us, and we started using these practices back in 2014, and it was because we had the top shelter vet in the country, Dr. Sandra Newberry at the University of Wisconsin, come to our facility. And she actually did a year-long consult with us. So all of our practice and protocols are based on these really advanced levels of care. And that's how we operate our facility.
Thank you, Mandy. I'm going to circle back to a really great question that just came in. And sorry, you guys, there's so many questions and there's stuff that we still haven't got to that is like hot button stuff that I want to get answers for. But somebody just said, can other people that know how to sew make the gowns for you? And is there a place they can go for patterns and material requirements? Can you say just briefly on that, and then we need to move on?
I would just say that anybody that's interested, if you are a sewer, please email the info@pasidaho.org with your information, and we will get in touch with you.
Thank you. Okay, I want to move on. We have 7 minutes, so the high level, let's just try to get people's questions answered. So this has been a big one. We have fewer animals in the shelter than usual, and people would like to know how their donations have been being used.
Okay, so we have significantly increased our investment into our supportive programs. So the Helpline, I believe I mentioned this before, is on track to assist around 2,400 animals this year. We also provide, the Helpline provides free food and supplies, support, medical care for people's pets. Our Pets for Life program is expanding, and those needs that we're seeing are also increasing. There are people that are still unemployed and they really need help caring for their pets. So we're utilizing donations to assist in those areas. And then in the walls of the shelter, we have animals that are here in the facility being cared for. Sometimes the public doesn't see them and they're not listed on our website because they're not ready for adoption. They're in the back in isolation due to some medical needs that we're addressing. We also are supporting foster families who are taking in kittens and other medical cases that we can't have in the building. We're providing them with food, litter, vaccines, deworming, all of those support needs that they have. And then just to say that a thank you to anyone who's donated food or litter to our organization. Last year we gave out 7 tons of dog and cat food, and that has been really big need in our community for people. Even when COVID hit and there was a stay-at-home order, we pivoted and were able to drive food to people's houses so that they could continue to feed their pets. And the volunteers contribute to the overall success of the shelter in significant ways, but we have staff, and the staff really are the reason that we're able to operate at a high level. That includes vet technicians and full-time veterinarian and support staff. And we also have staff that are responsible for our programs and operating the thrift store, communications, development, managing the front desk and front end of the operation. Staff are vital to our growth and success. And we need to, as with any organization, recruit and retain trained, experienced staff. It's a large portion of our annual budget. So we're competing with the private market. So we want great, knowledgeable, experienced team members that we can recruit and retain. And our salaries each year are researched based on expectations, qualifications, and education. And then just for the public to know that we submit our IRS 990, which is available to the public if you want to take a deeper dive into our financials.
Thank you, Mandy. We've got 4 minutes, and I'm going to just get you to talk about 2 questions just because there's general themes. People are wondering about us being short-staffed because we have fewer animals. And I think this question is really great because it is kind of confusing. We don't have as many animals in the shelter. So maybe you could talk about what it is that our shortages specifically. And then also, like some people are asking, how are we going about recruiting them or filling these positions?
So our biggest hindrance right now is our ability to bring animals in. And what that means is we don't have veterinary staff. So we need veterinary technicians. We need assistance with intake. These are positions that are performing physical exams, identifying, key problems that need to be addressed, vaccinating, deworming, performing emergency medical if we have an emergency that comes in. So just to shed light on our current situation, we have 1 full-time veterinarian and 1 part-time veterinary technician, and that's it. We have we've posted obviously on Facebook. We are posted on Indeed. We are posted on Idaho Works. These are forums that we've been successful in the past with, but really what it comes down to is our ability to compete, for lack of a better word, with local veterinarians. And we've had to look at our pay, our compensation basically towards these positions that are technical and professional and really require a specific type of person coming in and doing the work, and change our pay based on our needs and obviously our surrounding veterinarians. We're a very small community, and the unfortunate truth is that we're all competing for the same people, and that's our biggest struggle right now, and really again why we're not able to take as many animals in, because we do not have the staff to be able to accommodate it.
Thanks, Devin. I'm going to ask one more question, and that one is about home to home. So we've talked about increased numbers of animals being adopted through home to home, and I looked it up, and actually in October there were 29 animals adopted through home to home. So this means that these animals are not coming into the shelter. Can you talk about what is available for people who adopt an animal from home to home that needs to be spayed or neutered, who do not fall into a Pets for Life community?
Yes, we have a voucher program, and it is available to our community, and you don't even really have to be part of our, I mean, basically you have to fall within one of our service areas. So Bonner County, Boundary County, and Kootenai County. And you just come in and you come in and you talk to the front desk. We've got vouchers, we've got participating veterinarians that help us out with this need. Eventually, as we, again, are able to get our hands on some veterinary technicians, we want to bring vouchers and spay neuter, basically community spay neuter, back into the shelter. This is a program that we were able to provide for a very small amount of time before we had to discontinue it. And we recognize that we're putting a lot of pressure on local veterinarians to kind of help out and facilitate this need. We want to help contribute to the success of the spaying and neutering of our community's pets. And this is basically our answer, and it's a program that we'll continue to provide. So if you don't want to come in-house, once that program is started up in-house, you can still go to Bonners Ferry Veterinary Hospital, or some of these other participating vets that are helping out.
Thanks, Devin. Okay, well, everyone, we're running out of time by way of we're over 1 minute. So I just want to kind of close us, but I'm assuming I still got 18 people listening, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that maybe we can just maybe close and ask, is there anything in the questions that have come up for you guys that there's something you want to share, like closing thoughts? And maybe just keep it really short so folks can get on with their day.
Yeah, I can go. Something that just occurred to me with other shelters and being able to provide, excuse me, what am I saying? We're the only shelter in this region, other than I think Kootenai Humane Society has medical, that actually has the ability to do our own medical services here in the building. And because of that, it requires that we have more supplies. The other thing to keep in mind is that all vets, if you call your local vet right now, are really overwhelmed because they've had to scale back appointment times in order to practice social distancing and do all the other things that people have had to do. And our volume of need is would not be able to be provided in local with the local veterinary clinics. We just help too many animals, we would overwhelm them. So that's why we've invested the time and money into bringing on a full-time vet. And we do look forward to getting our vet techs on and really working through all of this, keeping in mind that last year we helped 8,400 animals, like 8,400 animals. We helped more animals in our facility last year than we ever have in the history of our organization. There's no reason that we won't want to do that again. Like, we want to be helping animals and community members at an amazing level like we have in the past. So it's just asking community members to be patient with us and understand that the way that we're operating right now is not by choice. It is really managing hurdles to do the best that we can. And I'm really appreciative of everybody who has joined us today to take the time to learn more about us. And I would encourage you to email info@pasidaho.org or reach out in another way so that we can continue the conversation.
Thanks, Mandy. Devin, did you have anything before we close?
No, I think Mandy touched on quite a bit. I think one thing that, yes, I do actually. One thing I would like to say, and this is something that I'm just recognizing is needed in the world right now. Like, it's a very complex time, and there's a lot of divide, and I think it's really easy to sit and potentially have strong feelings or thoughts about what somebody should be doing or an organization should be doing. And, to echo what Mandy said is, please take an interest in what we're doing. Come in and talk to us. We are all human beings who love what we're doing. and take a great deal of pride in what we're doing and want to continue down the path that we've been on for so long. And I think just exercising patience and understanding and kindness towards each other right now, especially just because we're in, it's just hard times. There's a lot going on in our world. And I think we would all be in a better place just knowing that we have the support of our neighbor, of our community, and that we're going to be given a little bit of grace during this time of challenge.
Thank you, Devin. Okay, everyone. Well, we're at 12:06, so I'm sorry that we went over, but I think these conversations were really worthwhile. There are several of you who have questions, and I've tried to keep up, just giving you my email. You can email me directly. My name is Paige, Paige, at PAS Idaho, or send them to info@. Happy to answer your questions or even jump on the phone. I'm looking forward to meeting some of you. We've already got some dates scheduled for next week. So we appreciate your questions, your concerns, also your support. We have the most phenomenal community, and just want to say a big thank you for the people who gave up part of their Saturday to be with us and talk with us. And we hope that we can just continue to communicate. So with that, I'm going to close our meeting, but we will have this recorded and we'll share it so you can view it later or share with someone who missed it. And then again, just send those questions to info@. Also, just another plug for, we need volunteers. If you're concerned, a really good way to help is to fill out a volunteer application. Come in and join us, work with us. And also, if you want to foster, there's a lot of opportunities to foster cute, cuddly kittens, and we provide everything that you need, including training, bottles, formula, litter, food, toys, you name it. We will help you with it, and we'd just love for you to fill out a foster survey. So with that, I'm going to close our meeting. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a really great day.